Tema Talks is brought to you by the Tema Conter Memorial Trust, which is Canada's leading provider of peer support, family assistance, education and training for emergency services, public safety, military personnel, and their families. Check out tema.ca for more information. The views, opinions, and endorsements expressed in each podcast episode are those of the host and the guest alone, and do not necessarily reflect the official position of the Tema Conter Memorial Trust. The subject matter of this podcast may be triggering for some listeners. Please take the time to get yourself in a calm and positive mind space before listening so you can get the most out of the podcast. Okay, cue the music and enjoy this episode of Tema Talks.
Hello people, and welcome to Tema Talks. Episode 15. And the 7th episode in June for PTSD Awareness Month. Thanks for joining me. It's a pleasure to have you here with me. Not much to say this episode before we get into it, but I would like to congratulate Todd Doherty and his group, his people that have been working on Bill C-211, which lays out a framework for which lays out a national framework for PTSD, and that law was passed and received royal assent today, as I record this, June 21st. So congratulations, that's awesome news, and I look forward to seeing what that brings, and what new opportunities that may bring, and what new support systems that it will put into place. The work is just beginning, but congratulations. Okay. My guest this episode is Mindy Piva. For those of you that don't know Mindy, you're going to get to know her now in a few moments. She is a paramedic. She's also a speaker for the Tema Conter Memorial Trust. She's now a yoga superstar in the making. We talked to her about a lot of different subjects, and I really enjoyed this chat. Now, a little disclaimer before we get into it, because once you start listening to this chat, I want to let you know that I am not interviewing a child, even though it sounds like it. Mindy has the most adorable child voice you're probably going to hear. But she's a full-grown adult, believe me. I have met her. Anyway, it's adorable. Enjoy it. Let's get to it.
It was a dark and stormy night, nor'easter rolling in.
Welcome to Tema Talks, Mindy. Thank you for taking the time.
Hey, thanks for having me, Sean. This is incredible.
This is awesome. I'm so excited to have you on and to chat with you. I met you for the first time, I believe. If I'm wrong, you can kick me, but I met you for the first time at the Tema Gala in February.
Yes.
I think that's right, yeah.
At the awards night before, I ran up to you and said, I want to do an interview.
Well, here you are. You got it. You asked for it.
All right. There you go.
I met you and Chris there, and it was wicked. So I'm happy to have you here. Before we get going into all your stuff, I'd like you to just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you grew up and where you grew up and what led you to be a paramedic.
Okay. So I grew up, until I was about 9 years old. I was in Stratford, Ontario. My parents split up, and then my mom and my brother and I moved to Lindsay. I was kind of one of those go-getters, like captain of every sports team and what do you call it? Not bus patrol, but crossing guard and library helper. I was like everybody's helper. I always wanted to help.
Were you a hall monitor too?
Totally.
Oh,
anything that I could wear a badge, I was there.
Cool.
And so I think just that need to help people started really young.
Yeah.
I thought I wanted to be a cop. That was what I had my heart set on when I was in high school. I did a co-op with the OPP. I really, really wanted that. People used to joke, and you know that girl on Police Academy, stop, with the little voice. They're like, that's perfect, that's you, because I've always the little voice.
Yeah, you sound like you're 11.
Yeah, totally. That's a warning. I'm actually 38, and I sound like I still get people calling and saying, "Hey, is your mom home?" So, people get really surprised actually when they hear me, and then I come out with something articulate. You can actually see the surprise on their face. They just, So I've gotten that a lot, and they used to say that about the girl from Police Academy, and then I was going through school and I saw that there was an emergency response team. I could be on this team that went to the bars at Wilfrid Laurier. I could go to the bars and patch up the people who were like fighting in the...
Really?
Yeah, so I joined that team and I loved it. I loved like wearing the cool red jacket and like the, carrying the bag around. Like all you really had was Band-Aids and maybe a sling or something, but I just felt so cool. And, I think that was a piece of it for me. And then I went and did some volunteer work after that. And I just remember them saying, cause it was in Costa Rica. I lived for 4 years, and on that trip,
oh, cool.
They kept saying, "I can see you patching up bullet holes, but I cannot see you shooting a gun." So then I just got to thinking, and then that was kind of set from there, and I went the paramedic route. Just always wanted to be a helper. That's what I think.
That's how it starts for all of us, I think.
Yeah.
Mostly. So you started working as a paramedic in 2002.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay.
I think so.
Right. Perfect. And so how would you say your career was? I know you're up until 2008 when things changed for you. How would you generally say your career went?
I would say it was my dream job. Like, I loved it. I loved it. When you get this job right out of, like, college, and you're making all this disposable income, and we lived right on the water, we could do trips all the time, like, we had the dream life, and we had the coolest job, and people would say, like, "Oh, what are you doing now?" "Oh, I'm a paramedic." You know, how, like, the pride in that, and being able to say that is massive.
It is.
So I loved it. Like, I do remember, like, the first, like, there's a time in there where it was, every call was exciting, but then it started transitioning into, like, I remember asking my partner, like, when does the nerves stop? And I remember him saying, "Oh, about 2 years in." And I look back at that now, like, isn't that crazy? Like, we just, like, got our bodies used to feeling constantly on edge. And so I did, like, I remember that looking back now, but I never, ever would have said, like, it gave me anxiety, anything like that. I was mostly excited to go to work and loved. Yeah.
So what happened in 2008?
So 2008 was, it was July 29th, 2008. I went in for a night shift like I'd done like 1,000 other times before.
Yep.
And, so in retrospect and what I know now about PTSD, is I describe my call as a perfect storm. So I'll tell you, like, the variables and what happened and how one of those things at one time would have been completely fine. Probably two of those things at one time would have been fine. Right. But I had the perfect storm of, like, 100 things come that one night. So the first thing was that we got called to an unknown. Okay. So for it to be an unknown, in my head, I had this, like preconceived idea that I was probably going to come up to a car that had just driven off into the ditch, and somebody drove by and didn't want to stop and called it in. Because that, for me, was a typical unknown. So having my brain ready for that, I was driving and we went to a call which was 45 minutes away from a hospital. Right. Probably about 15 minutes from my base. So we had long times because of like the area that I worked up in Muskoka.
Okay.
So when we got there, we saw a massive transport truck hanging over the edge with what looked like a smart car attached to the grill, kind of hanging, and what was holding it was the guardrail was being pulled out, and it was basically like holding it like, can you picture that?
Yeah, I'm trying to picture that, yeah.
Okay,
Wow,
so the guardrail's being pulled out like from the middle. It's still attached on either end.
Okay.
And then there's a transport hanging over, and it's a rock cliff and down to the water.
Huh.
So that's on the one side of the road. On the other side was about 15 or 20 like young 16 to 18-year-olds screaming, yelling, running, panicking. So basically what happened was an 18-year-old left work. A bunch of like teenagers go up to their cottages in the summer and they get a job at this restaurant and they're all buddies and it's like it's a blast, right? So all his buddies, he had just pulled out of the parking lot and he got hit by the transport and he was dangling over the edge and all of his friends were there. So the second part of my perfect storm was that these kids were all there screaming and panicked. The extrication to try and get this guy out was so involved and so dangerous. So number one thing about being a medic is your safety is number one, because if you go over this cliff with the vehicle, then you're no help to anybody. So
my paramedic instructor, Cindy McCoy, used to tell us always in school, like 3 times a day, that I love me best. That's what you had to keep telling yourself.
I love me best. Yeah, totally. Yeah. And even though it's like everything in you wants to run and help.
Absolutely.
You have to like rein yourself back and say, no, this is not safe. So, volunteer firefighters were great, but they were definitely panicked and just trying to rig up some like safety gear so that the whole truck wouldn't go over.
Right.
Turned out the smart car was actually a van to begin with, but that's how smashed it was.
Okay.
So once we got him on the cot, and up until now, this is kind of a normal call. Like this was
So you got him out of the car?
Yeah.
Wow.
Out of
Out of the van, yeah.
Out of the van, and so you can imagine, right? All the kids on the side are still screaming. During the time when they were waiting, they were still screaming, and like basically like, "What are you doing? Help him! Why are you standing there?" Like just freaking out. Once we got him onto the cot and then into the back of the ambulance, so I was in the back with a firefighter because I was doing our protocol, and at the time we just had this new protocol where we can get a pronouncement from base hospital.
Okay.
So my partner was out of the vehicle and he was like trying to get cell reception to talk to base hospital, but we're in the middle of nowhere basically. And anyway, so that was a whole other mess. That's like another variable to my perfect storm. So I did the full protocol, the trauma protocol that I was supposed to. And then I was supposed to just do CPR. But for some reason I kind of was in like, you know, in Grey's Anatomy where the person's like, no, I'm not going to lose this person. I'm going to get them. Like that's kind of I was already heightened just from all of his buddies out there. Like, please help him. Oh, help him. And I kept on like, I was really struggling with his airway and I was like, what? Like, he must have, like, been chewing a lot of Hubba Bubba, and I just kept pulling this pink stuff out, right? Just like, what is this? I learned later, like, from the coroner that was all lung tissue. So he really didn't have much hope, right? Like, no. But I still was in that I don't want to lose him.
Right.
And so up until this point, I think my training, like, I was trained for that. up until that point, I was still good. What happened was someone on one of his friends had called his parents and said, hey, I'm not going to say his name, but Johnny was in a car crash, come pick him up. They literally thought they were just going to come and pick him up and take him home. And so the back of the ambulance doors opened, and the mom and dad come in, and I was standing right beside the kid, and I always describe like the mom, she just like got hit by like the biggest, strongest like iron fist right in the gut. Like she recoiled and she just was sobbing and screaming, and at this point we had gotten the pronouncement at that time, and so when they came in, I was just kind of standing there, and it looked like I wasn't doing anything, and the dad was just like begging me, like, please help him, and I was completely frozen.
Yeah.
And she just kept, what do I do, and she's laying on him, and like it was just the most traumatic thing I've ever seen, and I didn't know how to help them. Well, yeah. Like, I know what to do with my job, but this whole, like, pronouncing thing and everything combined for this to be way more than my brain could handle. So, the two other things that happened after that were, I was driving, like, I got in the front of the vehicle, and, the big, strong, tough copper comes to the side of my door, and I roll down the window, and he was sobbing, and he was crying. Like, the energy of that scene was intense.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I saw a police officer cry. Like, that was, that did not compute in my brain either. Like, that's not supposed to happen.
Yeah,
like,
what was going through your head then? What were the feelings going through your head when you saw that?
Well, as soon as I got out of the ambulance, like out of the back, my partner was there, and I was like, I'm really fucked up. And he was like, he's like, do you want to like stay in the back? And I was like, no, let's get out of here. I gotta drive. Like, I could feel like that I couldn't, right away I knew that was mess. Like, my brain couldn't process. Right. And then when I saw this guy crying, then I was even more like, what just happened? So, like, I was the medic also who was, like, follow the rule. Like, I was inside and out, like, rule follower. Like, we're all good at following protocols, but I was, like, really, really...
By the book.
So, yeah, by the book, yeah. And, so he was already pronounced, but I still drove lights and sirens as fast as I could. That's how I wasn't really in the right head. Like, I just...
Right.
It didn't make sense. And then because of this new protocol, I also had to take him into the morgue. Right. So that was the last piece of my perfect storm. And for some reason, we couldn't transfer him that easily to that metal slab. Like, his arms kept on falling off, and it was just, I was sobbing as we were, like, moving him over. It was the worst.
Yeah.
Like, I guess that's an anxiety laugh there. But I don't even know how to describe it. Like, you're just in this crazy other world of what just happened. This is not how it's supposed to work. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So that was July 29th, 2008 for me. But I didn't think that was the end. I knew it was like, oh, I gotta, like, cry this out or something, but I never ever dreamed that was like I was done.
So tell me about July 30th and on.
Yeah, so as soon as we got back to the base, I let my supervisor know, and he was really great actually, and he talked with me, and he said, there's this critical incident stress management team, so I'm gonna hook you up with them. And I was like, okay, good. I need help. Like, I knew.
Good for you, though, for being aware of that, though.
Well, I think so. Like, after we had got to the hospital and like the whole morgue thing, I literally went back, like just sat in the ambulance and I called my husband and I couldn't even talk. I was crying, like I was just sobbing. So I think maybe it was even my partner that called the supervisor, who knows? Like I couldn't even hide it. I couldn't even like, I don't know, maybe that was a positive for me. Like if I had been able to hide it, it could have, I don't know. So at least, yeah, you're right. I asked for help. That's number one, I think, for anybody listening. That's number one, asking or at least showing what you're feeling. Yeah, so I met with this critical incident stress management team the next day. So nowadays there's lots of controversy around like the different like
sort of the time frames kind of thing?
Time frames and strategies and like procedures.
Right.
So at that time, the idea is to kind of tell the person who's like going through something about the hard things you've gone through and like to normalize it and say, this is what happened to me, this is how I felt, it's normal to feel these things.
Okay.
So I met these two fellows in Tim Hortons, and the way I remember it is I was re-traumatized because I had to hear about their worst calls, about the toddler that they had to pick up off the street, or the... And
you're in a Tim Hortons with other people?
Yes, I was sobbing.
Okay, yeah.
And this guy said, you have to go back on the ambulance or you'll never go back. And I was like, okay, these guys know what they're doing. Right. You know, obviously So the next day I went back to work.
The next day?
Yeah.
Really?
Well, like I had one night off and then the next night I worked. So
holy.
Yeah, so, and at this time, like PTSD.
No, yeah, everything is new.
Nothing is even in my brain. Nothing. So I went back and we got a respiratory distress. It was like an old lady who was like, did a hiking trail and she was having trouble breathing. Yeah. I got her in the back and she was talking to me and completely like alert and oriented, and I put the pads on her. So for anyone that's not paramedic, putting the pads on someone who's alive is number one no-no of being a paramedic. Like I didn't shock her or anything, but I wanted to be prepared. I wasn't gonna let her die. I was gonna be ready.
You were being hyper-vigilant.
Totally. So that was my first clue. Like I told you before, I was by the book, like follow all the rules. And then I had to like call base hospital and explain why I had an open pack of defibrillator pads and I had a patient who was walking and talking. So that was a kind of a wake-up call, but I was still like, nah, I'll be fine. And there was a Jack Johnson concert at this place called Burles Creek. It's like a big like campground.
Okay.
And I was like, Jack Johnson's my favorite. He's so mellow. He's gonna, like, that's what I need. This weekend will just be like nice and relaxing and then I'll feel fine. So I went to this concert and it's like people everywhere. And so one of like a characteristic of, at this time it's not PTSD because it's just like acute. So but still, there was some
It's post-traumatic stress right now. It hasn't...
Right. There's no disorder yet. Yeah.
That's right. Yep.
Or critical incident stress or whatever you want to call it. Yep. But I was calling on... I was like... This big group of big guys were listening to like rap music loud just when we were like on our way somewhere. It wasn't like interfering with the concert, anything like that, but I lost my shit and I was like, will you fucking turn this down? I'll give you $20. Like I was like, crazy woman. Chris grabbed me by the shoulder, my husband Chris, and he was like, Mindy, sit down. And that was the first time like in my life he's ever talked to me. But that was a I could not control my emotions, and
Right.
it was like a new Mindy that I'd never seen before. So that was another, okay, something's going on. I feel like I'm making this into a long story.
That's what this is about. No, we're good.
Okay.
You're awesome.
Okay.
There's no time limits here. You keep going.
Okay, sweet. Okay. So that was a crazy thing, and my best friend was there as well, and she just kept saying, like, "Are you okay? 'Cause you're not acting like yourself." And I was like, "Oh, just a bad call. I'll be fine." So then from there, I called my boss, and I said, "I am petrified. I can't go on the ambulance tomorrow. My shift was on the Monday or whatever."
Right.
And she said, "Okay, well, you can come do some light duties." So I went in and I did like some data entry stuff, and I remember just crying as I was sitting there. There's like supervisors and admin staff all walking by me and seeing that I'm crying, and nobody said anything. Like, I look back, all this stuff in retrospect, like looking back and seeing, and I can't even believe it happened, that nobody said, "Hey, I think you need help."
Huh.
So I did that for maybe a week, and I was, I couldn't sleep at night. I was just really struggling. And then one of the days, the supervisor said, "Oh, can you drive some stock out for us?" And I was like, "Okay." So I took the supervisor vehicle, and I didn't even clue in, but one of the bases you have to drive past the accident site. And so I drove, and I came up to it, and I couldn't breathe, I couldn't speak, I couldn't do anything, and I couldn't stop crying. So I literally I had to call into the base. They sent someone out to get me, and they drove me home. And it was then, and it was actually the secretary who drove me from the base to my home, said, "I think there's something called WSAB. I think that they can help you with this." That was the first time that anyone had ever told me that that's a thing.
Right.
And I don't even know, it sounds so silly now. I'm just so grateful that there's so much more awareness out there now, that people know that it's actually a thing you can get help for.
Yeah.
Because it really was beyond my understanding at the time. So then from that day on, I did all the paperwork, and that is, I never went back to work after that.
So when you got in there and you got your diagnosis, and I assume that then you started some, what are the different kinds of therapies that you did that you found worked for you?
So cognitive behavioral therapy, I think, was, always in the background of every therapy, I think, and just that is, kind of helping you see it a different way. Seeing it with a different perspective, or reframing it in a different way, and understanding it a different way.
Right.
So that was definitely beneficial. Because when my diagnosis, a lot of people have triggers that are very specific, and my triggers, I don't know if it's because of timing or if it's just my brain, but I tended to generalize. So even though, on that specific call, let's say, no, that doesn't even make sense. I'll tell you what my triggers were. My triggers were uniform, paramedic uniform. So I generalized to every paramedic with a uniform. So it's trying to say, it wasn't just specific about the call. It was I generalized anything to do with being a medic.
Right.
Generalized sirens, or seeing ambulances, or transport girls, or that's still a big one. So because of that generalization, I avoided, my number one coping skill at the beginning was avoidance. And, I had to use that cognitive behavioral therapy to see it a different way and to learn how to get over that generalization.
Yeah.
And then exposure therapy with my psychologist. That was, I think that's how I'm functional today.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's so much easier to avoid and just not do the thing that you're scared of. But when it's like, no, this is what's going to help you get better, then you do it.
Yeah.
So, like, I had to look at, like, pictures of trauma and pictures of car accidents, and I'd have to sit with them and wait until my heart rate came down, you know, tell myself I'm safe, use my breathing techniques that I had learned. I had to listen to sirens on my iPod every day.
Really?
And wait till yeah.
See, this is a good point, because I'm glad you brought this up, because it obviously worked for you, because you've just now told me this whole story, and obviously your brain has reprocessed this memory correctly, and you're able to tell it.
Yes, without bawling.
For me, listening to what you're saying about this type of therapy, it sounds like torture to me. However, it sounds really cruel to me, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
However, but that being said, everybody's different, and different things work for different people. So, obviously, this worked for you.
Yes. Well, and because I literally had become a little bit of it, like agoraphobia, or like staying in my house, or only going to the grocery store at like 10:30 at night because there's no chance of seeing anyone and I could do it fast, or I was doing things like that that wasn't how I wanted to live. So don't get me wrong, the exposure therapy was
sounds exhausting.
Yes, and it was much, like, it was months and months after the call. Like, it was after I'd learned about how to breathe and how to think a little bit differently. And it was always at my pace. But we would make a plan, and that was... And it was always functional. So she didn't want me to worry about things that didn't, like, add value to my life. Like, going past that accident site, I've never had to, and I don't think I ever will. And so that wasn't... Yeah. So it was more about, okay, you never know when a siren's going by. You can't, like, bolt. Like, when a trigger happens, people go into fight, flight, or freeze. I'm flight. I run as fast as I can. So, like, how embarrassing, like, you're at a family event, like, where's Mindy? Or gone. You're like, we're at, so those ones I wanted just so that I could, you know, kind of blend in again.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's worth saying, too, so your husband, Chris, also a paramedic.
Yes.
So, how is that working? Through after your diagnosis up to it, and through your recovery, because that's a very unique dynamic. Yes. How was that?
So I've done talks before, and I have this slide of him. So picture, like, when you're looking at a cute little baby for the first time, and your eyebrows go up and your eyes go wide, and you're just like, oh, like, that is his listening face. So, like, I really, like, if you're a spouse and you're trying to help, like, I don't know how he ever learned this stuff, but he was phenomenal. Like, I would come back from the psychologist and just, like, oh my God, he said, I could do this, and then if I use this strategy, and then he would just be there with these eyes with the eyebrows up, in, like, active listening face, right? Now, never trying to fix me, just always listening and be like, wow, like, so he was, like, the poster child for a supportive spouse, like, without a doubt. He was incredible.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so, he was my rock. But I always was worried that because he knew I couldn't hear anything about work, and I was usually his debriefer, right? So that was always worrisome for me. So I, like he said, he would, you know, talk to his partner and stuff like that. But that right away created such a different dynamic, especially because he would also have everybody asking him about me all the time.
Yeah.
Because we worked in the same service. So,
Right.
like, constant reminders like, how's Mindy? And he knew that I wouldn't want them to know. You
Right.
know, like, what a awkward place for him to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
but
mean, So you were diagnosed in 2008, and then
Yep.
how long after that, going through your recovery, were you to the point where you could think about taking on a different career?
So I think it was 2011.
Okay.
No.
No?
2000. I think 2010. Anyways,
Okay.
what happens is you get to a point where your psychologist says, like, I have helped you as much as your brain will allow.
Right.
And sometimes there are things that your brain can't get over. So for me, I have 2 triggers that I cannot desensitize enough to in order to go back to the road.
Okay.
So I can't do CPR, and I can't see dead people. So
Right.
you can't be a paramedic if you can't do those 2 things.
No.
So that's called maximum medical recovery. So once I hit
It's
that,
called,
that's
it's called
when
what?
maximum medical recovery.
Oh, okay. I haven't heard that before. Okay.
Yeah. So basically, she's good, but these are her restrictions for work.
This is the new her.
This is the new Mindy, totally. Right. Yeah. And I didn't even, I kind of just jumped to it. Like, that was long and painful to, first of all, get over the grief of where did the old Mindy go and the perfect job and the awesome everything.
Yeah.
To this girl who's afraid to go to the grocery store. Like, what the hell? Like, this isn't me. So that was a new, just grief, basically grieving the old and realizing, okay, this is the new, and I got to make it the best I can.
Right.
So, WSAB kind of walks you through it with, like, they have specialists that will help you learn what you're good at, what your psychoeducational IQ tests are, all that kind of stuff. Okay. And I was cleared to go back to school.
Excellent. And you became a communicative disorder assistant.
Yeah, nice work. Yeah.
Like, so what is that?
That's a huge mouthful for, like,
Yeah.
It's my dream job was speech therapy with little kids.
Okay.
So the communicative disorders assistant, the speech language pathologist, does an assessment, and then they say, okay, here are the goals, and then the communicative disorders assistant, also known as a CDA, just plays games and practices either sounds or sometimes they'll be doing language with maybe a little guy who may have autism or suspected autism. Will work on language. So yeah, like a sunshine and rainbow job, much different than CPR and dead people.
So you enjoyed it and it was going well.
Yeah, I loved it.
And then in 2012, Chris gets diagnosed with PTSD.
Yes. Can you believe it?
So how'd you guys handle that? Because it must have brought up, I mean, it's nobody's fault. It must have brought up things for you.
Oh yeah.
You know?
And I was functioning and doing so well because I had that rock.
Right.
I didn't know how to be a rock. I didn't know how to active listen. Right. I didn't know how to be the shoulder to cry on. I was the one who needed the shoulder. So it completely threw us off kilter. And like, he'll tell you too that he never thought it could happen to him. Even though he had a wife going through it, he seriously never thought it could happen to him.
Right.
And he also, like, one of the first things is denial. So he also, even though he was like thrashing around, having these crazy nightmares, waking up in puddles of sweat and, reliving and being hyper vigilant and like losing his temper in like an instant, he still didn't see it until like until his psychologist said,
Did you
hit the
recognize it,
criteria.
though? Did
Oh yeah,
you
I
see
said,
it?
I think you need help.
Right.
Yeah, and it, he luckily was like, okay, cause I was kind of the expert now, but he seriously, I don't know if he would have, how crazy is it that he lived with someone and still couldn't see it in himself?
Yeah.
Weird, eh?
Yeah, it is weird. It happens, though.
Yeah.
It happened really easy, but it is weird. When you look back on it, it's weird.
Yeah.
So he goes through, his recovery, and you have to learn how to be the support system this time.
Yeah. Well, I'm in school with a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
And, it was hell. Yeah. It was hell.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously you guys got through it, which is a testament to your relationship. Obviously I'm not saying it was easy or anything like that. It was obviously really difficult. But you got through it.
Mhm. Well, we did have a lot of help. Like I think like Camp Praxis. Have you heard of Camp Praxis before?
I've heard about it, but don't know much about it, so go to it. What is it?
Okay. It's equine therapy. So there's a psychologist and also a team at one of the universities that are doing a lot of research and doing it all based on evidence-based. So everything about their program is evidence-based, that it actually improves lives. And then, so the psychologist works with us as well as, he is trained and specializes in managing conflict and, communication. And he's also from the military, so he's a veteran, and he, has been down the road of PTSD and knows all the strategies himself. And so they're the two facilitators for this program. It's for spouses of either military or first responders.
Right.
And with the use of horses, they help you learn what's happening in your communication and what's going on and what's not being said. And how are you holding yourself, and how are you portraying yourself, and how are you, because the horses don't, they can't lie. They
Right.
show you exactly what you're bringing to the table.
They're a mirror. They're a true mirror.
It was life-changing. We did 3 days. They flew us there to Alberta. It's funded by Wounded Warriors. Wounded Warriors.
Awesome organization.
Amazing. So, we couldn't have done this without, both of them. We couldn't have, afforded it ourselves, so to have Wounded Warriors to be a partner is just incredible. And it was actually TEMA, so TEMA Contra Memorial Trust, they are kind of in partnership as well because they know a lot of us first responders. So
Right.
they were the ones who gave me the info and said, hey, they're looking for a couple and we've put your name if you were interested. So, we went there very close to separating.
Okay.
And we came back stronger than ever. And from there, it's just built and built and built. We weren't communicating before. We were using silence as our daggers, and
Right.
resentment was just building and building. And so they taught us how to communicate, and they taught us how to, just so much. I can't even, if you get a chance to go, you have to go. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible.
I'll certainly have to try to have them on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do it.
No, they
and
sound
go.
awesome. I've heard a little bit about them, and I was waiting to talk to you about them. That's what I. But,
That's cool.
They sound cool. So some other things that you have done since. So talk to me about yoga, because now you're into yoga.
Yes. Okay. So, how sometimes like shit just happens and then all this coincidence appears out of nowhere, and you're like, this seems like way too good to be true, and the timing is perfect, and
Yeah.
That's what happened with this yoga thing. It always has been like a pipe dream for me. Like, well, wouldn't it be cool to, be able to teach yoga on the beach or something? Like, that would be a dream life for me.
Yeah.
And, but I never thought it would, like, be real. Anyways, it just aligned, and, this is called Happy Jack Yoga, so they do a scholarship as well, and I applied for their scholarship, and I got a partial scholarship, so they paid half of it, and so Happy Jack is a real guy whose backstory is like so much adversity. He was a big businessman in Toronto. He was making tons of money. He was obese, an alcoholic, doing drugs, hating his life, found yoga, and changed his whole life around, like found like, so much more purpose. And he is friends with Tony Robbins. So backstory on that is Tony Robbins has been the guy I've been listening to like on my iPod like forever. Like I still even remember like when I wasn't leaving the house, I was like listening to him, and I remember just seeing him on that Shallow Hal movie with, Jack Black, that one?
Yeah.
Anyways, that was when I first discovered Tony Robbins. Anyway, so that was another coincidence that the universe kind of threw at me to be like, hey, this guy's friends with Tony Robbins, and he developed his entire program with Tony Robbins. So it's yoga / like meditation / leadership / change your life for the better / like transformation craziness.
Nice.
So yeah, this just all started like January 2018 for me, and I love it. I feel like that was the missing piece for me. I think when you're living and surviving with PTSD, you are constantly feeling exhausted because you are on edge all the time, because your brain is constantly alert to, okay, what's going to happen? So I was trying to, anytime I could find relaxation, I would choose like the couch and Netflix and scrolling Facebook, or like literally just like, let me just relax. That was what I thought.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I did this that I figured out that wasn't quite relaxing. That's more like
stimulation. It's just
or like trans, like I don't even know how to, like, just like zoning out.
Right. You're just turning your brain off.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah.
But at the end of yoga, they call it savasana at the end, is like you basically just get to lay there. And I just like...
That's my favorite part of yoga, by the way.
Totally.
At the end,
totally.
where I don't have to do anything.
Me too.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
It was like, everyone's all chilled out, and then I sat up and I was like, oh my god, I just figured it out. This is what I've been actually waiting for. Like, I actually was relaxed. So I just couldn't believe how good I felt, because I finally felt what relaxed feels like instead of just zoned out. So yeah, I feel like I'm a little bit too passionate about it, maybe, for...
No, that's not possible. So
okay.
You're actually progressing towards being an instructor?
Yeah, so it's a 200-hour teacher training. And once I hit the 200 hours, which will be mid-May, then I will be certified to teach anywhere in the world, which is pretty crazy. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And yeah, so it's pretty cool, and it's kind of neat because like there's a whole anatomy component, so that's kind of neat to just build the, as a medic, all that too. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. And then recently, I think it's recently, you started doing a blog.
Yes.
So what's that all about?
So the first weekend of this Happy Jack Yoga,
right,
they show us this video. It's called Finding Joe. And if you haven't seen it, you gotta look it up. It's like on YouTube, and it's a documentary, and it's about a hero's journey. And I related to it right away because I thought I had done that hero's journey. Like I conquered PTSD, like I thought I was set, and but then it kind of just says like how important it is for the hero to bring what they learned back to their community. And the story is the treasure. So realizing that it is a treasure, that I can speak to people about post-traumatic growth, and if there's anyone out there right now who, doesn't know what this PTSD thing is, or doesn't know why they're having nightmares and screaming or avoiding the grocery store, or, not able to put their uniform on, whatever it is, that I can give them some hope for the future. So that was like, kind of like one of those, like, oh, that's why I'm here. So I came home, and I was like, just the other part of it is like Happy Jack says, like to write, to get stuff out of your head, it's really beneficial. So I started writing, and I couldn't stop. Like I just did it. And when I was writing it, I thought that like the 15 or so people in my yoga course would be the only ones that read it. Little did I know that like everybody thought it was pretty decent. So that was like extra exciting. And
well, yeah, and then you have friends like Natalie Harris who go and share it, and then all of a sudden you blow up.
Oh yeah. And she's the best cheerleader in the world. How excited she was for me, and it was pretty awesome. So yeah, I feel like the story is the treasure that I have to share, and I feel passionate about that because I really remember the day that I found out there was something called post-traumatic growth. Mm-hmm. That was the first day I got hope, that I didn't have to stay like that. Yeah. Because when it's first happening, you're like, okay, is this just the new me? But you actually will get better, and you'll get better than you ever were before. That's the whole thing about post-traumatic growth. You're better than you were before you started. Yeah. My psychologist used to say that when something traumatic like that happens, you gain like 10 years of wisdom really, really quickly.
Yeah, so and that doesn't mean that you can do all the things that you did before.
No.
That's not what it means. Yeah. Because I think some people have that sort of misconception that, well, if I can't do the things I did before, then how am I better? But you're just not looking at it the right way.
Right. Yeah. And the things that you can't do from before are important now. Right. Which is hard to understand at the time, but...
For sure.
Yeah.
So what's your plans for this blog? Do you plan on putting out so many of them, or every so often, or just whenever it hits you?
My goal right now, or my I don't know, is to focus on finding what makes me happy, or finding joy.
That's a good goal.
So so I started doing a painting class. I've never painted before ever. All of a sudden, I love painting. I am writing and I'm writing and I'm writing. Like, I have a bunch of blogs, but I tend to like to write in journals. So I just haven't typed them out yet.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I gotta get on that. But it's mostly just I feel like it's almost like therapy getting it out. And feeling, especially when, like, people are coming, like, or writing on it and saying, like, hey, this was, felt like it was right from my heart, and I was able to share it with my mom and share it with...
Yeah, how does that feel
like,
when you get something like that?
Wow, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It sounds
so
like it sounds like you're loving a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you're in the groove.
Or just trying, I guess.
Yeah.
Trying new things has kind of been my New Year's resolution, I guess. But just adding more joy. I need happiness in my life, and yeah.
Well, yeah, you're certainly going after it. Where can people find the blog if they want to find it?
So it's Medic, so MEDIC, Becoming Ineffable. So Ineffable is INEFFABLE.
Right.
So Ineffable, it's I think it's like the best word ever.
Yeah, what does that mean? I haven't really ever heard that word before.
Oh, it's going to be your favorite. You're going to use it all the time now, I'm pretty sure.
Awesome.
So it's, I think it's a double meaning for me, but the dictionary meaning is indescribable.
Oh.
So a medic becoming indescribable. That's the whole thing about finding joy and, like, you know, like building up my passion for living, I guess. And then if we, like, take it into, like, first responder world, it's in capital F-able.
Yeah, I'm going to use that word all the time.
Okay, I knew you would.
Yeah, that's an awesome word.
Yeah, because you, Sean, are definitely ineffable. So you need to use that
Is that
word.
a good thing, though? Is it a good thing? It's a good thing.
Oh, yeah, both ways it's a good thing to
perfect.
be ineffable. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So how else can people reach out to you if they want to?
Well, you know what? Maybe one day you'll teach me Twitter. But I'm on Facebook. Mindy Piva is my name.
Right.
And, I think that's it. I need to maybe learn some new stuff like Twitter, but I'm working on it.
Yeah. I'm pretty good. I'm Instagram dumb. That's where I fail. My wife and my daughter are like Instagram, like, savants. But I don't. I mean, I post a picture. Don't get me wrong. But there's all these other things you can do, and I just don't know how to do it. Or don't
Maybe
do it.
we should, maybe Natalie Harris will, like, come together with your wife and your daughter, and then we'll do a course.
Yeah, it needs to happen, I think.
Okay.
It does need to happen, for sure. So, before we wrap things up, I want to ask, like, so how are, like, it sounds like you're doing well. Would you say you're doing well? You're happy on your path?
Yes. Yes, I had, like, a little hookup. That's the wrong word.
Yeah, I was going to say, what do you mean? You had a what?
A little hiccup.
Hiccup. That's the what. There we go. That sounds better.
Not a hookup. I'm still married.
Yeah, okay. You had a hiccup. Yeah, okay, good.
Yeah, so I thought I found my second dream job, you know, working with the kids and stuff, and because of counties and money and politics, I lost my job in January. So that's what I was saying about how things just aligned and coincidences came. That's why the yoga thing fell into view for me. So that was another pretty big setback. Just like I fell into like victim mode, like like my second dream job, I had to lose that. But I'm focused on also, I don't know why I didn't tell you this part.
Oh, what?
With the yoga thing, my goal is to be able to offer it to first responders, and, you know, take donations for, like, hashtag I've got your back, 911, or for TEMA, because I think it's so important if I hadn't known like all these new breathing techniques that I'm learning, it actually innervates the parasympathetic nervous system. So basically, it takes you out of fight or flight and puts you into like mellow mode just by these certain breathing techniques that I'm learning. So I want to teach them to every first responder that's on the road. Like when you're going to a call, do these breathing techniques. Like there's ones where you like breathe through one nostril and then you switch to the other nostril.
Oh.
And the science behind it is that it actually kicks into your parasympathetic nervous system.
Really?
So I want to teach people that are on the road, maybe even students before they get on the road, so then they don't have to learn this stuff.
Oh, for sure.
When they need it. Yeah. So that's my goal, is once I get this yoga thing, that I want to bring it to the
Here's what I think needs to happen. I think that at all these TEMA events, right? I think you and Teresa Coulter and Naomi Fox, like, all need to get together and have a great big yoga class during the symposium or during the event. Like, there needs to be some aspect of that, I think.
Aaron Alvarez and Vince Foya have already, like, gave the go-ahead. They're full on.
Like,
totally.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Let's do it.
Anyway, that's just my opinion. I think it'd be good.
Okay.
I don't know if you'll see me there. I don't know if you'll see me do it, but I think it should happen.
Well, for the breathing stuff, at least. Or the Savasana.
No, I have to do it. Teresa already told me that I have to go, and I don't have a choice.
Sweet.
So I'm kind of locked in.
She's incredible. Okay.
All right, Mindy, if someone's listening right now and they're struggling, you know what that feels like, what would you say to them?
I would say do the homework. I would say if your psychologist says to go home and turn your little dollar store timer that you bought for 1 minute and take deep breaths for that 1 minute, then do that. Even though if you think it's hokey and it won't actually help, it was those little things that I did that I could then build on, and then that's how I got better. That's how you actually train your brain to stop thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking. So
you
whatever you're saying,
that's a hard thing to do. Stop thinking and start doing.
Yeah, so do the homework. Even when it's hard and doesn't make sense to you, do the homework. And if they didn't give you any homework, then read. Just whatever reading that is enjoyable to you, whether it's books or going on Pinterest or Google, whatever, just to know that there's hope. Like you don't have to be stuck feeling in the dark and in the lonely, lonely, scary place. Like there is hope.
Yeah. Well said. Thank you. Thank you for that. Mindy, you're wicked. This is awesome.
You're wicked awesome. This is so much fun.
No, this has been wicked. I want to thank you. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, and you heard the 12-year-old voice swear.
I know. That's the weirdest thing ever. That is so weird. Yeah. And I'm happy with that. I'm glad I got to hear that. That's perfect.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I might have to get you to record my voicemail message or something for me and just talk like a sailor. That'd be awesome. Yeah. That'd be wicked. Anyway, okay. Mindy, listen, thanks. I want to thank you for taking the time. Thank you for doing what you do and talking really candidly about your story and, about the incident itself and walking us through that whole thing. I think that's really important. But then not dwelling on it, because I think that your story, as I said to you before, is a story of recovery, resilience, and empowerment. Anybody listening to your story and what you're doing now, you can't help but be empowered. And we need people like you. We have lots of work to do, and we need people like you out there.
Aww, my cheeks are hurting from smiling so much.
No,
Thank you. It means a lot.
I speak the truth.
Thank you very much.
But thanks, and obviously, if you have anything else going on, anything new going on, let me know. We will share the hell out of it, and if you have, want to come on again, we're going to have Chris on, obviously.
Awesome.
We'll get him on as well, and he'll have a whole different perspective, and as well as his story, which is a whole other story.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll definitely get that on. But keep doing what you're doing. Keep taking care of yourself. I'm so happy that your relationship is in a good place, and you guys got through that. Keep on keeping on. I love you, and just keep doing it.
Aw, thanks. I love you too. I think you're awesome.
No, thanks. I'm just trying to get the word out, trying to have cool people on, which I'm lucky, and you're definitely one of those people. So, all right. Hopefully, I'll see you soon. But take care of yourself.
Okay, you too. Thanks so much, Sean.
No, you're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Now my shift is finally over. I gotta deal with what's mine.
How awesome is she? That was great. I know you loved it. I loved it. So thank you, Mindy, for taking the time and coming on the podcast. We really appreciate it. Okay, before I let you go, we're going to talk about golf again. Help Our Heroes Charity Golf Tournament, September 29th. Granite Springs Golf Course in Halifax. Put on by Bobby McKenzie. Awesome dude, firefighter in Halifax. All proceeds going to the Temaconter Memorial Trust. Sound like fun? Well, you can come. If you're a first responder and you like to golf, we need someone on our team. So email me at tematalks@tema.ca. Attach a screenshot of you following us on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. Tell us what you do for yourself to take care of your mental wellness. And let me know what your favorite episode of the podcast was and why. That's it. Simple. Easy peasy. We're going to draw names on August 1st from those who email in. And one of those people, if your name is drawn, all you have to do is get yourself to the golf course, bring your gear, and you are on Team Tema. Going to be an awesome day for an awesome cause. That's it. So if you'd like to do that and golf with us, get on it. Get that email in. All right, and don't forget our Facebook page contest. Continue to share the page if you already like it. If you don't know about the Facebook page, check it out, Tema Talks Podcast. Give it a like if you like what you see. Once we reach 1,000, we're going to draw 5 names to receive Tema swag bags that Kat and I are going to put together. So you know it's going to be awesome. Other than that, just thank you guys for listening and continuing to support. I really appreciate it. Couldn't do it without you. Wouldn't be here without you. You know the deal. I love you guys. All right. And as it goes for this month, you're going to hear from me again in a few days. So take care of yourself and each other. More love, less judgment.
'Cause we ain't superheroes, we're just ordinary people trying to make a difference and the first on every scene. And it's a heavy, heavy